Cash rules everything around me. Wu-Tang, let's go. What is up, Bengals fam? It's your boy Mike coming back at you with another Who Daily. I move spots, I'm moving around, I'm in a different place, different background. Here to talk to you today, though, about the Cincinnati Bengals and how they've managed their salary cap. Now, I'm going to make some overarching, you can go and see where they've broken these rules before, just like my rules for the draft for the Bengals, right? They break these rules sometimes, but overall, this is how they deal with their salary cap. They are not like other teams. You'll see other teams go around basically going into the offseason being over the salary cap, and they've got to restructure a bunch of deals to get back under it. The Bengals like to go into their off seasons with as much salary cap space as possible below the salary cap so that they can make these moves and so they can tell their players, hey, make the roster, you're going to make your money. We don't have to restructure your deal and say, I know you're due to make $6 million this coming year, but we need to restructure it. Same amount of money, don't worry. You're just going to get it the year after that. They don't do that to their players usually. If they do that, if they start doing that, that's going to signal a bit more of a change. We saw a little bit of a change last year when it came to free agency, right? They went out and they spent money. Same thing with the year before. They went out and they spent money. Not huge contracts, and if you look at them, they're actually pretty friendly when it comes to guaranteed money. So they're still kind of sticking to their rules, but they're going out and spending money. If you look at the Trey Henderson, DJ Reader, the last few years, even the Chidobe Awuzie deal is not really that bad, right? They're not blowing up the bank. They're going and finding value players, right, which is part of their strategy. Other teams go and find these big, splashy free agents and tie up $15 to $20 million in them per year. Guaranteed money, all this stuff. The Bengals just don't really do that. So let's take a look at the numbers real quick, right? So right now, as it sits, the Bengals payroll going into this offseason they're sitting at about $133 million on their payroll, right? The salary cap just got adjusted. It's now $208 million, right? It's a lot. So that's about $70 million in space right there. Now, if you they're going to set aside, the what they need to pay the rookie contracts, right? And because they're picking 31 this year, so last year they needed $25 million to pay Joe Burrow, right? Or the previous 2 years. After when they picked Joe Burrow number 1 overall, and even Jamar Chase at number 5 overall, they needed enough money to pay those contracts. The way that that's slotted in the NFL, whenever you're drafted in the first round, depending on your position and where you're drafted, those contracts are slotted in. You have to be able to pay. So the Bengals already knew how much they already knew they were going to take Jamar Chase going in. They knew they were going to take Joe Burrow going in. They knew how much they needed to slot in to pay those guys, right? This year they're picking 31, and the player is more than likely going to be a defensive player. That's just what I'm guessing. I don't think any of these top-tier tackles that they'd be interested in are going to slide down to them at 31. I just think that, I don't think Linderbaum's going to be there, even if Tyler Linderbaum is there, guys, and we'll talk about this in a different episode, but I don't know that the Bengals take him. They may pass on Tyler Linderbaum just because the Bengals have really strict measurables that they need people to meet in the first round. They won't draft a corner who runs slower than a 4.4 and is under 6 feet tall in the first round. They're just not going to do it, right? There's also arm length issues with Linderbaum, and he weighed in. He's pretty light. He's 285 or whatever, and like most, look at these nose tackles he's going to have to block. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a different video. But back to the point, I think they're going to go defense probably first 2 rounds. I think it's going to be the opposite of last season, right? So last season they spent money on the defensive free agency, drafted for offense. I think it's going to be the opposite this year. But if you take a look, they set aside, it's going to be about $3 million slotted aside to pay their rookies, right? And then you take another about $3 million to sign their restricted free agents that they're going to want to bring back. This doesn't include the unrestricted free agents, but that's about $6 million. Usually, after you factor all that in, going into free agency right now, they've got about $60 million to spend underneath the cap. And don't forget, they've gone cash over cap the last 2 seasons, right? So under Zach Taylor, they're actually pretty aggressive. They'll go out and spend money. They'll actually go cash over cap. in a season and not worry about it. You get a specific amount of leeway there, but they have a lot of cash available. Point is, and at $60 million, they're gonna be aggressive. However, I think that they may only sign they only sign one offensive lineman that the casual fan will have ever even heard about, and I think it's going to be Ryan Jensen. There are lots of signals that the Bengals are looking to upgrade at center, right? And that's not to say that Trey Hopkins is bad. It's not even to say that Trey Hopkins might still play on this roster. He may be playing one of the guard spots next year. It just depends. But if they sign a center, more than likely they're going to end up cutting Trey Hopkins because he has about, I think it's an $11 million cap hit. That they can clear off the books if they end up signing a center. So take a look at that. Just remember this: if they sign a center, look for them to not long after that, maybe simultaneously cut Trey Hopkins and put him back into the free agent market. But the reason I think it's Ryan Jensen is because it's really down to, I think if they sign a center, it's gonna be one of two guys: him or Bozeman out of Baltimore. Now, Bozeman is actually more of a mauler type dude. He's not as solid of a pass blocker. He gets okay pass blocking grades in that Baltimore offense because a lot of their passing is quick hitters and quick games, and a lot of times they'll give their quarterback the option to make one read, and if it's not there, pull it down and run. And in that case, you don't get a negative pass blocking grade, even if you get beat, if it was a designed run, right? And that's what those plays a lot of times look like. I'm not a huge fan of Bozeman. I think the Bengals are going to try to get Jensen. And I want you guys to check out this tweet, right? This is from Andrew Filipponi, who is an NFL insider type of dude. He says that he is hearing from he's affiliated with the Steelers. He's hearing from Steelers executives that it's like a 95% chance Ryan Jensen ends up in Cincinnati. That is, man, for an executive to say that, he must have insider information of some sort. Either that or he's trolling Bengals fans. And out of a Steelers guy, I wouldn't put it past him. But at the end of the day, man, if they end up signing Ryan Jensen, it's a big get. That immediately makes Quentin Spain better. If they if Quentin Spain ends up being their left guard and Jackson Carman ends up being their right guard, that makes both of them instantly better by having a guy like Ryan Jensen playing center, a veteran. That is with a track record of just of being solid in the league. But that's not all they're gonna do. They're gonna also sign other guys. They're not gonna go look if they were gonna pay out of the nose for a guard, they would have done it last year. They're not gonna do it, right? And I think they have how much money I think they're more sophisticated than people give them credit for it, and it looks like they're cheap, but really what it is they know what positions they want to spend money on. And you can argue till the cows come home about whether they're right or wrong on that front. But they just played in the Super Bowl, guys. So let's give them a little bit more credit than just, they're cheap and stupid. I don't think that's the case. That's not. This front office isn't dumb. They know that they're going to have to pay Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase coming up a lot of money. But they also know they need to put a contender around him in this window before they have to pay him. Okay, so that they're going to do that stuff. So the Bengals are what I like to call a middle-class team. And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean that that they don't put good teams together. I mean that from a free agency perspective, right? So if you look at J.C. Jackson, there's all this buzz about J.C. Jackson, how much money he's going to get. They're saying that he's going to set the market, right? So he's the best corner available. Him and Stephon Gilmore, two of the best corners available. Whoever gets signed first is going to set the market. That's looking like, because he's younger, it's going to be J.C. Jackson. He's 26 years old. He's going to set the market and going to get probably around $20 million guaranteed, and from someone. It's not going to be the Bengals. It won't. The Bengals are not going to pay a free agent cornerback $20 million guaranteed. The reason is because it's about team philosophy. There are lots of teams in this league, and actually a lot of them end up competing every year. So this is a popular strategy. Go pay big time free agents, guaranteed money, wrap up 60% of your salary cap up in these 5 or 6 just stud super expensive players, and then fill the rest of your roster out with bottom of the barrel free agents, super cheap guys, veteran minimum free agents, and rookies, right? That's one strategy. The Bengals don't do it like that. What the Bengals do is they go and they sign the Bengals. They don't go and overpay superstars in the market. What that allows them to do is distribute their money more evenly to get middle class free agencies, right? Not the bottom of the barrel veteran minimum guys that everybody needs to fill out their roster because these other teams need to fill out their roster with these guys because they're overpaying 5 or 6 of their other players. The Bengals scoop up guys like Chidobe Awuzie, Trey Hendrickson, DJ Reader, Eli Apple, Mike Hilton, Quentin Spain. They pay their own guys like Joe Mixon, who's on a pretty team friendly contract, and even back, if you remember, Andy Dalton's second contract was very team friendly. They didn't pay him they didn't overpay for him, and I don't think they ever would have. Von Bell, Larry Ogunjobi, B.J. Hill. They get these guys that they're not scrubs, and they're not gonna be pulling the league minimum, but they also get them on deals that they can justify while also paying their own when it comes to the Bengals paying superstars, they want to pay the guys they draft, right? So you think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, they want to pay those guys the big salaries whenever that comes due. But it's just a different philosophy of building your team. They've got a lot of money, $60 million. They're not going to go and sign like 2 guys to take up that $60 million. That's never going to be the case. What they're going to do is they're going to go sign probably 7 to 10 guys, 2 of which you maybe will have heard of, right? But at the end of the day, it's going to make the entire roster better from a depth perspective. They're not looking for a whole lot of starters, guys. They've got their defensive starters pretty much locked up, but they'll go get a depth pass rusher for sure, at least one. They'll get depth at the defensive tackle spot, and now that may not mean B.J. Hill. B.J. Hill is going to end up getting more money, I think, than the Bengals want to give him. But re-signing Larry Ogunjobi, and this is also another reason I said I think they're going to go they're going to go the first 2 rounds of the draft are going to be defense, because I think they need a defensive back, whether that's a safety or a corner, and they need interior defensive linemen. And I think that this draft class is deep in both of those spots. It may even be an edge rusher, to be honest with you, but they've got Joseph Osai coming back. They've got Sam Hubbard. They've got Trey Hendrickson. I think they've got Cam Sample. I think they feel pretty good about where they are from an edge perspective. Like they're going to get depth on the edge in free agency with some of these middle tier free agents, right? And I think from a draft perspective, the Bengals love taking corners in the first round, and there are a bunch of corners that are going to be available, and I'll cover that stuff. I'm cover what I think they're going to do in the draft later on in this week. There's going to be a mock draft coming up. You guys should tune in for that. They're always fun. I'm going to also show you guys my rankings of players that are likely going to be available to the Bengals in each round, and who I think they should be looking at for sure, coinciding with their needs versus who's going to be available. But guys, it's going to be a crazy exciting offseason, because this team, even if they don't sign anybody, even if they don't do anything, this is a Super Bowl roster. They're not really losing that many players. We're looking at making something that's really good into something that's great, right? Which is an exciting time to be a Bengals fan. But that's going to do it for me for now. Until next time, guys, I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily. Peace.